painful to watch. I thought, oh my god, this is really the worst thing that we're seeing on TV, these trauma bonds take off.
Their energy, they had like villainous energy. It feels like they knew something was wrong with what they did and how they started. And they were like, nah, we don't care what anyone says. You don't say that unless you know that you did something wrong.
Hi, we're Julie and Kelly, and we're here to find love. Today we're doing a Bachelor in Paradise 2022 recap, Season 9, the finale. We are at the end, everyone. This week's episode, we see the final two couples and an update on what's happened to everyone after the beach. So this week, we're going to get into Jesse Palmer and how he was just forcing the storyline. Kate's dehumanization of Logan, Aaron and Genevieve's prolonged breakup, Victoria, Greg, and Johnny's post-paradise story, and if Kelly and I are excited for any of the remaining happy couples. So let's get into it.
Man, it was quite a finale. There was a lot going on in that episode. It was like kind of hard to keep track of it because there was so much happening. I guess the whole point of the show is to try to escalate intimacy as fast as possible over the course of 2 months. Like, I get that's the whole experiment. It's the whole conceit, right, of the show. It's if we put people through this very stressful process where they're forced to interrogate their feelings for each other and they know there's supposed to be an engagement in the end, will it make relationships, like, will it produce successful relationships? Like, that's, I guess, the whole point of the process of the show, but that's also the part of it that everyone hates. I thought about this right before that last rose ceremony episode in Monday night's episode, right? Right before that rose ceremony, Jesse comes out, he says, okay, with this rose, what everyone needs to think about is, are you happy and are you ready to take this to the next level? And if you are going to give someone that rose, that's what it means. It means you want to take this to the next level. You could see a future together. You are trying to take steps forward. That's what this rose means, which, you know, that's really intense, right? You look at couples like Shanae and, which twin was she dating? Was it Justin?
Or, I can't even remember.
I don't know. Whatever. Shanae and the twin. I'm so sorry. I can't remember that guy's name. But you look at couples like them or Flo and the other twin, and it's like, could they have gone on dating for a couple more weeks? Sure. I'm sure they could. In the real world, they would probably just like keep hanging out and just have a good time together until one of them got tired of the other. But because of the structure of the show, it forces you to just like decide right away, up front in the beginning, do you like this person enough to pursue something more serious? And so, of course, a lot of the couples should say no and they did say no. A lot of the couples break up even after the rose ceremony when they are forced to have that final conversation to decide if they want to go to the fantasy suites and discuss engagement, right? It's the same thing. It's just kind of like forcing these couples like, hey, that conversation that you probably wouldn't have until like a year or two into your relationship, have it right now and let's see what happens. I'm always an advocate in relationships to have conversations talking about what you both want. So in that sense, it's good that these people are thinking really intentionally about what they're doing. You know, in that sense, I think that is like a good quality, and it does mean that you waste less time if you're not on the same page. But on the other hand, you see something like Victoria and Johnny where, you know, they rushed into an engagement. Johnny seems to have basically done it just because Victoria wanted to do it. And we'll get into how that ended up. But you see how the escalation can sometimes really cause a lot of pain because it forces people to take on a commitment that's probably just way too early for them to take on. But it's kind of like, well, if I really like this person, the only way for me to show it is by taking the next step in this really escalated process.
It also brings into question of relationships having to fall into this really natural progression, as if when you date someone casually, just for sex, just for fun, just to learn more about yourself, it doesn't really mean anything unless it's attached to all of the significance and this like bigger commitment with the person. Sometimes relationships don't have to be with your soulmate. It doesn't have to be the end all be all relationship. It could just really be something that you have a lot of fun in. because for Shanae and the twin, or Flo and the twin, and I'm so sorry that we can't remember their names. I know that they're both Italian and they love their mother, so there is that. But it's like, why can't they just have fun in the relationship where they were with two men that liked them, took care of them, and they could have a lot of fun and exploration with? Why does it have to be, if you're not my husband or the person I see myself with, this means that on Shanae's part, I get to make all of these judgments and
oh my gosh,
say all of these things to you because who I imagine myself with is not who you are. So that means that I get to diminish you in this conversation about my expectations. I think that is the biggest, right, that's such a big flaw that kind of, that the show does when it escalates all of these relationships, and it says, if you're not getting an engagement, then the person that you're with in this relationship that you're building does nothing for your development as a person unless it's tied to this tangible goal. I think that's very dangerous, and a lot of people do date that way, where it's like engagement or bust, you know?
Right. I think the thing that makes it really hard is the show itself kind of self-selects people who are only looking to date for that one specific reason, right? It like forces people, I mean, it's why people sign up in theory, right? People sign up because they know that the show is about getting into a serious relationship. There are these imposed kind of artificially heightened stakes throughout the show. Every decision that you're going to make, you know, they tell you that it means something. Jesse is there telling you, here's what it means if you give her the rose. Like, he's going to be in your ear telling you what each gesture represents. And people sign up because they are game for that. They are game for something that will make them make decisions more quickly about how they feel about someone. So I don't know if I blame the contestants for having this narrative as much as I blame the structure of the show. It's kind of, the show is built around one specific type of relationship, and it could kind of make us forget exactly what you're saying, that not all relationships need to be that format. Not every single relationship needs to lead to that goal. And to some extent, I don't think the contestants or the show are intentionally pushing away those other types of relationships. It's just that the focus on just engagement-related relationships does, you know, we always say this, it like creates this narrative, right? We kind of absorb this information. We never see dating shows that are just about people hanging out and having a good time and getting to know each other, and that's it, without the pressure for it to lead to something more. We never really see dating shows that are about that kind of dynamic, or I don't know, maybe there are shows like that and I haven't watched them, but you know, there is so much pressure in this type of show, so it feels like that is the only valid relationship when we know that that's not true. So it's an interesting question. I would be curious to know what the audience thinks too. Like, what do you all think about the fact that let me say that one more time. What do you all think about the fact that this show forces people to move toward engagement so quickly, and that it is all centered around the idea of relationships that end in engagement? Do we think that this is a good thing, a bad thing? It's neutral. If that's what you want, it's what you want. Or do we think that it is pushing an odd narrative about the value of different kinds of relationships? Let us know down below. Let's talk. The first breakup that we see that is the result of this kind of escalated, have this conversation now, the first breakup that we see related to that is Kate and Logan. Happens right at the rose ceremony. Every other couple is like, yeah, sure, I'll give the rose to you. Yeah, sure, I want to go to the next level with you. Every other couple does it, except for Kate and Logan. And Kate goes up to Logan and basically berates him after Logan offers the rose to her. And she breaks up with him and leaves. And she says things along the lines of, you called me critical, but I think that's a projection, and you're the one who's critical of me. I think she thought she was having some kind of girl boss type of moment, or like, I'm standing up for myself and what I deserve kind of moment. That's what it felt like she thought she was doing, but it really didn't come across that way at all, in part because we all know how Kate has been treating Logan and talking about Logan this whole time. The thing that really stuck out to me about this particular breakup, of course, I think we've talked about Kate's classism ad nauseum in the last couple of videos, and we can link some of them below if you want to go back and watch our thoughts about how she's been talking about Logan's money situation. But one thing that really stuck out to me as I was watching this breakup in particular is it just feels like at this point, Kate has started talking about Logan as if he's not even a real person. It feels like she is talking about him kind of like the way we talk about these people, like they're characters on a television show, but we know that they're real people. It feels like Kate had started talking about Logan almost as if she forgot that he's real, because the things that she was saying about him, they were just straight up dehumanizing. It felt like she was taking everything that he did, innocuous or not, and turning it into, or trying to fit it into some kind of like, I don't know, TikTok narrative about what you deserve in a relationship, or maybe some kind of like, you know, I keep saying girl boss, but that's like what it feels like to me. It feels like she has this idea of what relationships should be like, and it feels very influenced by social media and the way we talk about relationships on social media. It feels so influenced by that. I call it the TikTokification of relationship narratives. It feels like there's this TikTokified, Instagramified idea of what a relationship is and should be. It feels like she has downloaded this script about what relationships are supposed to be like, or what she deserves in a relationship, which that in and of itself is from social media, right? You see posts like that. You deserve X. You deserve this. You deserve to be able to have that. You see those kinds of kind of one-liner statements. They're posted onto social media all the time via these short form like TikToks or whatever. You see that kind of stuff. And you just see her kind of regurgitating that kind of language without any of the nuance of what it actually means to be in a relationship, dialoguing with a real life human being who is not just a person that you can write off. He's not just a person who, oh, he did this one thing, that means he fits into this exact narrative of what the internet told me I should not date, and therefore I can kind of talk about him with all of the other tropes, all of the other things that the internet tells me is bad about men or bad about partners, all the other red flags that the internet tells me to look for, I'm going to start applying them to Logan because he did one thing that applied. You know, does that make sense? It feels like there is an application happening of these different narratives onto Logan that were not relevant or that just needed more nuance.
Kate has commodified dating, and the way that she represents dating is how a lot of people are that maybe kill it on dating apps because they are attractive, they are somewhat successful, and they're able to really command a high filtering process to the people that they're dating. But when you're dating from that place of self-selection and bias, you aren't, like, it's the kind of person that you meet at a dinner table and they're automatically comparing you to this idea of who they want in a person. And if you don't meet those things, then it's like who you are, which is a person deserving of vulnerability, connection, and is basically saying, I want to find love. All of that is pushed to the side, and it's like, what can you do for me? What can you bring to the table for me? And if you can't do these things, then I'm not going to treat you like a person or a human or a person that has your own needs and interests.
Right.
Kate, to me,
right.
She dates from that place, and I think a lot of people that date from that place, it's super dangerous because you're not interacting with people for who they are and what they can give you in love and relationships. Kate is just very much after herself and her own experience, and I think that that moment at the rose ceremony where she was like, I'm not going to take the rose from you because of all of these things, that was her just centering this love story on herself, and this is what I deserve, this is what I want in a partner. But guess what? When you're in a relationship with someone else, there is someone else's dreams, needs, and expectations that also come into the picture. But Kate won't give you space unless she gets all of her space first. And I think that's a very selfish dater. That's a person that is not truly empathetic in the ways that you need for the relationship to thrive and be vulnerable. Because of that, this is why Kate is single.
You're absolutely right. And I love how you compared it to like a dating app type of behavior. It did feel like at some point it was like she was talking about him like he's a photo on the screen. Like, you know how you evaluate people on your dating app and you're deciding if you swipe left or right? Like, the way she was talking
100%.
about him, at some point, I was like, he's not a photo on a screen, right? He's a person in front of you who, at this point, you've already built a relationship with. You cannot talk about him like he's not a real person. But you have to actually have conversations with him, not be blabbing about him behind his back. It just felt like at some point, I don't know, she went from, clearly she thought she had a connection with him initially. That's why she pursued him, right? She was like sitting on the bonfire and she was like, I'm feeling something with you. This is when he was still, I think, kind of macking on Sarah and she was with Jacob. Like, there was something there that was authentic initially. That was what drew them together. But then all of a sudden she spun into this weird kind of, evaluating all of his behaviors and by herself, without even really talking to him about all of the things that she was kind of saying about him. Like, that's why in the finale reunion, he was like, I wish you had said all of this to my face, because then I would have known right off the bat that who you are and that you're not the kind of person that I would want to date. And I think that's pretty fair. It felt like she was kind of concealing her kind of cruel lens through which she was seeing him. She was kind of concealing it when she was actually talking to him and only revealing it to the cameras and to all of her friends. And, she said this thing at the reunion, which was like, oh, I was just saying that to my girlfriends. Like, I never intended for you to hear it. And it was like, the things that you say to your girlfriends are still you. They're not any less true. So I don't know that's not an excuse for what you did to him. That's not an excuse for how you viewed him, for how you treated him, for how you talked about him, for how you disrespected him and dehumanized him. Whether you do it to your girlfriends or you do it to his face, you do it to the cameras, it's like who you are in any of these scenarios is you. You are not. And that's the other thing. It's like I saw all of these tweets coming out from like Jill and Sierra were like posting tweets like, oh, but Kate's a really good friend to me. And it's like, so? What does that have to do with anything? It's like, you need to hold your friends accountable. Don't just say, like, well, she's nice to me, that must mean she's a nice person. And it's like, no, we all saw the way she treated Logan. So I don't know why they're acting like, well, she was mean just in those moments, but that's not who she really is. It's like, we saw her consistently talking about him in this way. And so to me, it just felt like, I don't know, I hope she watches this back, learns from her behavior. I kind of don't think she will, because she kind of dug her heels in at the finale.
People contain multitudes, and we're much more than a one-dimensional interfacing. For Kate's friends not to be able to say, Kate is nuanced. Just because Kate is nice to me does not mean that she's a nice person to date. If they're not able to have that kind of call out or accountability, your friends, the people in your life that should have your corner with limits, right? Like, if someone is being crappy, who better to call them out than your friend who has your back and can tell you to your face, I need to be honest with you, the way that you are moving is not a good look. And it's not okay the way that you're talking about this person, or it's not okay for you to be dating this guy that we are friends with mutually, and you keep talking about him so negatively that if he heard these things, he would probably want to break up with you, or he'd probably have a really big problem with you shit-talking him. You should maybe be saying this to him. We are so much more than just good or bad as a human. We get to be all of these really complicated, messy things, and we fail, and we don't always do the right thing, and that's perfectly fine and normal. I don't think that Kate thinks it's perfectly fine and normal. Like, she just kind of keeps going up in her mind, and it's like, okay, well, that's not a place of growth, and that's not a person that has done a lot of work on themselves if they're not able to admit, I was really crappy in that moment.
What did you all think of how Kate and Logan's relationship ended and how she has responded to the backlash since then? And what do you think about all the people who have come forward defending her friends like Jill and Sierra, who've come forward to be like, she's a good friend? What do you all think about that? Let us know down below in the comments. Okay, let's talk about the next major breakup that happened at the end of this season, which was Aaron and Genevieve. So Aaron and Genevieve have been together the whole time. They've had a big up and down type of relationship all the way to the last rose ceremony. Genevieve was like freaking out, thinking like, is he going to give me this rose? And he did give her the rose, but the very next day, when they found out Paradise was over and they had to decide whether or not they want to leave together, go to fantasy suites, or break up, Aaron breaks up with her. And so she was upset, I would say rightfully so. He kind of sits her down and explains to her why he cannot pursue the relationship. And what he says specifically is he wants security. He wants to be in a relationship where he's not afraid that his partner is going to leave him anytime he makes a mistake, or a partner who's not going to just run off as soon as things get hard, which I think that is valid. Of course, we all want to be in a secure relationship. That all makes sense. However, the thing that she brings up, I think is really fair, which is she wasn't just leaving because things were kind of hard. She was leaving because she got yelled at and she was talked to in a way that is unacceptable in a relationship. So she wasn't leaving because she's crazy and emotional. She was leaving because she was treated in a way that is unacceptable. And it seems like her and Aaron had talked about this already, and that he knew that the way he talked to her was not okay, and he understood that that's why she was leaving. But to make it seem like she just was running out the door all the time just because she can't handle a little bit of discomfort, I think was pretty disingenuous. And to her point, it kind of put it all on her instead of him taking accountability for the fact that, hey, you weren't leaving because you are crazy. You were leaving because I treated you poorly, and I treated you in a way that was not acceptable. And so to me, I kind of liked that she went back up to him to kind of clarify that narrative and make sure that he didn't walk away thinking that it was all her fault why the relationship ended. Now, granted, I was a little bit like, I don't know, Genevieve, like, does it really matter that he knows? Does it really matter that the record is set straight? Maybe just because they're on national television, maybe it is important in that sense. In the moment, I was a little bit like, you know, he sucks, but is it worth, like, you going up there and telling him? But in the conversation, I was actually like, you know what, Genevieve? I'm glad you did this. I'm glad that you told him straight that, like, he doesn't get to walk away and put, like, this peaceful narrative on what happened. He said, we're going to go in peace. I really like you. I'm glad we spent this summer together. He was trying to apply this very peaceful ending to their breakup. I was actually with Genevieve in the breakup, but they did both show really good accountability in the finale. They both apologized, which I appreciated.
They did both apologize, but spoilers came out after the fact that Aaron had been dating 2 women on the beach. I looked up the spoilers after the fact because I typically am a person that loves getting spoiled in the season. But because Kelly and I do these recap videos, I started to kind of just watch each episode of New Eyes and not really try to get caught up in what's happening behind the scenes. But yeah, Aaron was supposedly in full-on relationships with other women while he was on the beach. So it totally makes sense on him having this show relationship with Genevieve and him just like reinterpreting the relationship with Genevieve to what he wants on his terms with his expectations, what he's willing to give. And as soon as Genevieve gets to be a person that is like, no, this is what I also want in a relationship, he shuts her down because he's like, well, this is the only relationship I'm comfortable of giving. I am comfortable of hanging out with you X amount, doing the bare minimum, you know, kind of like leading you on, doing all of these things because I'm trying to get something out of it. And it really calls into question Aaron's personality and who he is as a person, because I get that he's kind of like this, he's a sort of meme on the show, but yeah. I think he perpetuates so much toxic bro crappy behavior that if I never see him on TV again, like 90% of the cast, to be honest, I would be totally okay with it, because I don't think that they really add anything to the franchise outside of either falling right into production's hands or becoming these people that are just all about the clout and all about how they're being perceived on the show. Aaron, to me, seems like the biggest perpetuator of it because of the way that he treated Genevieve outside of the show and all of the things that were happening.
Aaron is a complicated figure. It's hard for me to understand how to interpret him because it seems like he's trying to get better as a human. Like, I think that over the course of the 3 times we've seen him in this franchise, he seems to be I think that he is doing work on himself. And at the same time, he has been doing this work and is now using that as fodder for why he thinks he's better than other people. And then you add in the fact that there is all of this other stuff happening in the background, these other relationships that are kind of under the surface. It just makes me think, I don't actually really know who this person is. To your point of like a show relationship, it makes it all really confusing to understand how to interpret. First is you take someone like Genevieve, who, man, she's got a lot of emotions. She is intense. She seems like she's probably hard to be in a relationship with. But you kind of feel that she's very genuine.
This reminds me of another couple that is really confusing, which is Brittany and Tyler. Because they had such an amazing Bachelor in Paradise story, albeit a little bit boring and not very sensational. They got together after the whole split week situation, had a really good relationship, steady growth, a lot of affection, a lot of romance, and then as soon as the show ends, I think Brittany was able to really see Tyler and their connection for what it was outside of the glow of the beach, and realized, okay, well, just because I happen to like a really hot guy on vacation maybe doesn't mean that he's the best fit for my regular life and who I am as a person and what I'm looking for in a relationship. That was a very interesting and a very quick shift. I believe Tyler is a person that really defines himself with who he is in a relationship, just based off how intense he was after she asked for a break, and then he just kind of like lit up her phone and just was like doing all of these things. And it's like, I get it, we have all been there, but for him not to give her any kind of breathing room is like, do you like Brittany or do you like what Brittany represents to you as a person?
Yeah.
And that's another way of like commodifying dating, which a lot of these contestants are super, super guilty of. If you wake up one day and you decide, I don't want to be with someone anymore and I want to break up with them, let them go. You're not owed anything. You're not entitled to anything. Just because someone made a promise the day before, it doesn't mean that their mind can change later on. Their whole breakup to me just felt like the most formulaic of the Bachelor show, of just like, okay, it kind of worked within the bubble, but now that the bubble has burst, we're not a good match and we should just part ways with it. I do think Brittany being cold, I am just kind of going to defend her here and say that she is just probably feeling really frustrated that as soon as she realized he's not my match and she told him that, he kind of tried to guilt trip her or shame her into being like, well, that doesn't make any sense because you were this way to me last week. And it's like, you're not owed anything. I don't know, but now this is making me think differently about the Victoria Fuller thing, but I think Victoria Fuller straight up cheated on
Okay,
Johnny.
we're going to get into Victoria, because you're right. I was thinking about that as you were talking, as you were saying that. Because I do think, you're right, it is okay to change your mind at any time. You're always allowed to change your mind about how you feel about someone or whether or not you want to be in the relationship, which that would sound like it's defending Victoria, but I have other thoughts about Victoria that
I was going to say, because I'm not defending her at all, guys.
Yeah.
Like, our girl has done wrong.
Yeah. And they were engaged. Brittany and Tyler weren't different. Just different insofar as the level of commitment that was involved in Brittany and Tyler's relationship. But you were so right about Tyler's weird, almost like guilt-tripping thing that he was doing. I kind of get why Brittany was being kind of short with him on the reunion. It felt like to me, okay, I have not liked Tyler since Rachel's season, and it's for this exact reason. Yeah. Remember when he broke up with Rachel? It kind of felt like she broke up with him, and he just kind of, even before the conversation started, she was like crying. She was so uncomfortable, and it felt like he knew that she was about to break up with him, and so he was like, I love you. I'm so excited to meet your family. He started like pouring these things in onto her, almost as if he loves her enough, he can stop her from leaving. And to me, it felt weird. I didn't like the way, I was surprised that everyone reacted to Tyler being like, oh my gosh, he's so sweet. He's this puppy dog. I was like, it felt weird the way they broke up. It felt like he was trying to kind of almost like keep her attached to him when she was trying to end things. I really didn't like that breakup. And to me, this feels like a repeat of that. This feels like him doing the exact same thing to Brittany. Brittany seems like she was trying to get space from him and to decide if she wanted to be with him. And he just kind of kept roping her back in, even after she asked to take some space. So I don't like Tyler. I kind of stand by this. It feels like he almost thinks that if he likes someone enough, he is owed something from them, or he can kind of keep them tied up in his story. But if they say that they don't want any part of your story, you have to let them go. And so even the thing that he said in the finale, he was like, we broke up, we ended our engagement, and you still never like checked in on me to see if I was okay. And it's like, what? You broke up. She doesn't have to check in on you. Let other people check in on you. Like, she is not, it's no longer her responsibility to take care of you. If she wants to check in on you, that would be sweet, but she's not a bad person for not wanting to have further conversations with you after she ends things.
She doesn't want to be in the relationship anymore, and the way that he is treating her in the breakup is forcing them into her being a villain almost, and him being this good guy that's just kind of getting put through the ringer because this girl won't give him closure, and no one is owed closure. And by the way, even if you get it, chances are it's not going to be something that you want to hear. So closure doesn't exist. Perfect clarity on a situation in a breakup never exists. It's really the own meaning that you give it, the way that you're able to walk away from it, the lessons you can learn from it, the accountability you can take from it. Focus on yourself and what you can do, instead of constantly shifting the blame to the other person or thinking that they can give you an answer that will allow you to walk away. Nothing will except your own two legs and you shifting focus away from them. So what do you guys all think about Tyler? You know that Kelly has never liked him since Rachel's season. Do you think that he had any justification to demand certain things from Brittany or to call her a bad person for not checking in on him after the breakup? Tell us down below. We move on into the best part of the entire finale, Victoria and Johnny. They basically decide to do the fantasy suites. They have an amazing conversation about being engaged. They get engaged on the beach. Victoria and Johnny had since broken up because of some choice words that Johnny said to Victoria. Victoria, I guess, like rekindling things of Greg and then just telling Johnny that that was never like an issue until it became an issue. It's really messy. It doesn't make sense. The conversation on the stage was really inappropriate to listen to because it felt like we were peeking into a conversation that they've had a million times that they can't get resolution on. Johnny was like, why can't you admit that you were talking to Greg? Victoria was like, why can't you admit the reason that we broke up was because of how you talked to me, how you judged me, how you said names to me, how you did XYZ, and that gives me permission to move on. It was like in that conversation, if they both weren't able to admit to those two talking points, the conversation wouldn't move forward. And they just kept going back and forth between each other. If Victoria cheated, if Johnny said all of these things, all of these insecurities, all of these judgments.
If anyone watched our first video from this season, after the first episode, week 1, episode 1, when Victoria comes down the beach, you and I mean, obviously we love Victoria. We stand her. She's so hot. Like, we love her. But we always said that she was a problematic fave. We always said that, right? Because she wasn't a great gal on Peter's season. Was it Peter? Yes, Peter.
Yeah, Peter's right? Season. It was bad. Who she was, the entire show was really bad.
She wasn't great on Peter's season. She hasn't been great, you know, outside of the show either. Like, she's got some dirt. There is a lot of problematic aspects of Victoria Fuller, and we stand in spite of them, but not without acknowledging them. And I think that this feels in line with what I kind of thought about Victoria. If you remember, I don't know if you remember this, Julie, but like what I said, we were trying to decide like who do we want Victoria to pair up with. And you, I think, suggested Brandon, and I was like, oh, that would be great, but he's too sweet. She's going to chew him up and kill him. Like, she'll chew him up, eat him, spit him out. And then we were like, oh, what about Johnny? Good time Johnny. We described Johnny, and this is, I think, because we didn't understand how insecure he was just yet. I think we were just basing this based on how he was on Gabby's season with Gabby and Rachel. He was so much more just like kind of chill vibes type of guy. So we were like, oh, Johnny would be perfect because he's so casual and uncommitted. He won't be able to get hurt by her the way I think some of these other really nice boys could get hurt by Victoria. That was why I was like, Johnny and Victoria, love it. Let's ship it. Boy, were we wrong about Victoria's ability to hurt Johnny. I think at least for me, I did not realize that he was this like soft, mushy, insecure guy. I didn't realize that about him. I thought he was good time Johnny. So that was why I shipped the two of them and thought that they would be a good pair. And I don't know if this was always inside of Johnny. Maybe it was. To me, it also kind of seems like in many ways she kind of like stripped down his walls. I feel like he was pushing through barriers in the relationship and while he was on the beach because he liked her that much, and he was like, I'm gonna get rid of my old ways. I'm going to strip down the kind of commitment issues. I'm going to work through my avoidant tendencies so that I can be in this relationship in a secure way. And you saw him really trying to get there. And it was, to me, kind of beautiful to watch him really grow into himself over the course of this relationship. However, the problem was that it was with Victoria. Like, it's like it was both like she was the only person, she's the type of person who I think anyone would bend over backwards to be with, and also the exact person who you should not be with.
Yeah, you should run away from Victoria. You should not be contorting yourself into these weird acrobatic moves, because you're totally right. And it was really cringy thinking about their conversation where they spoke about their biggest fears, where Johnny was like, I am deeply insecure. I don't like anything about myself when I look in the mirror. I believe that people will leave me without any explanation, like I am not owed anything. And then Victoria said, well, my biggest fear is abandonment. And then you see them enact those very same patterns with each other, where Johnny is not, he does not receive any explanation for why someone leaves. And then Victoria, much like any person that's avoidant, much like any person afraid of abandonment, self-abandons the relationship first before she's left. Painful to watch. I thought, oh my God, this is really the worst thing that we're seeing on TV, these trauma bonds take off. Yeah. And then they weren't able to even give each other love in that conversation, because it's nothing like the Brittany and Tyler relationship. Johnny was owed something. They had a deeper commitment, and he deserved to understand the exact timeline of if anything happened. And emotional cheating is really shitty. It really, really sucks. And the other person should be a big enough person to admit if they did something a little bit messy, doesn't make them look good, but at least it's honest to be like, okay, when you and me were on a break and I had something of Greg, me and him started talking, and that was a big catalyst in me wanting to end things with you, right, because of this relationship. But then I tried my best to keep it clean. At least say something. But Victoria was like, you called me a see you next Tuesday, so that means I'm allowed to do all of these really crappy things to you afterwards because you started it first. That was kind of how she angled the conversation.
She did angle it that way. And, to be fair, you should never call someone that. Oh, that is totally. I think it is grounds to end. That is what he said.
Don't do it. Yeah.
It's grounds to end a relationship. I definitely think that is true. But I also think that it is not relevant to whether or not she cheated on him, right? It's like her bringing that up as like, it's like not an excuse. It's just, it's not relevant to what she did. Like, if she needed to end the relationship, I think she should just end the relationship. And as we always say, like, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to decide you want to leave a relationship, especially if that was the nature of how toxic their fights were getting. It sounds like she also said some nasty things to him, because Johnny was like, I'm surprised that you would bring this up. There are awful things that you said that I'm not going to bring up because I'm not going to do that to you. And Tyler said the same thing when they were outside by the car. Tyler was like, she said really awful things to you too.
That was Jerry Springer, dude, when that was happening.
I was like, whoa, this whole thing. But it sounds like she said some awful things to him as well. Not that it justifies anything. I think that, what he said is awful. And I think, I don't know, if someone says that to you in a relationship, you should peace out. Like, that is grounds to leave. But it doesn't seem, to me, it doesn't justify or give you an explanation. Like, if Victoria, to your point, Julie, had just admitted it, like, you know what, I saw the relationship was deteriorating, and so I moved on. Maybe I should have ended it before I moved on, and, you know, I'm sorry that I wasn't cleaner with my lines. I was messy because I was emotional, and like the relationship was so toxic I didn't know what to do. If she said something like that, that would be different. But she continually denied that she cheated on him. And that's the thing that, to me, I'm like, what the heck? You know, I was screaming at the screen.
Him in that conversation, legitimately. That's what gaslighting is, guys.
Yeah, I was screaming traitor. You know, like Olivia Rodrigo's song Traitor.
Yes.
Like, you know, it took you 2 weeks to go off and date her. Yeah, you didn't cheat, but you're still a traitor. That's exactly what she is. It's like, sure, you didn't fuck him, but sorry. Like, yeah, you didn't, like, physically cheat, but you were emotionally going there. You were already on your way, making that connection with Greg. And that's cheating, right? It's like you're already sending yourself off to be with another person. And, you know, just end the relationship, which I think it seems like at the end of the day, they weren't happy in the relationship and it made sense for it to end. But that doesn't, again, excuse the fact that she cheated on him. I just, my girl, just admit to it. And even, it's funny that she denied it as much as she did, but when Greg came up and the two of them were sitting there.
He was honest. He kind of just said everything.
He basically said it, and the two of them were sitting there. They're like, we know it looks bad, but, you know, whatever, fuck it. Like, we're happy. It seems to me like they know that they did something wrong. Their energy, they had like villainous energy. It feels like they knew something was wrong with what they did and how they started. And they were like, we don't care what anyone says. You don't say that unless you know that you did something wrong. We don't care what people think. We know it looks bad. Like, you don't say that unless you know something is wrong with what you did. And so it's just funny that they both were kind of admitting that they did something wrong while Victoria still strongly denies cheating. It's just ironic. I'm like, at least just own that you did it. Like, if you owned that you did it, I think a lot of people would be a lot less upset with the situation than how it actually went down. It's the denial, I think, that makes everyone like, oh my gosh, stop trying to play the good girl, like, act.
This is a really good demonstration also of bad conflict and what it looks like. When the relationship erodes to a place of such toxicity, of name-calling, supposedly in the show, something that was cut out was that Victoria threw a wine glass at him. So there was a lot of things that were happening in that relationship and they were in conflict together. That's physically abusive when you throw something at someone. It's bad, supposedly, yeah. And like name calling from his part, if that's how the relationship had turned and shifted, the emotional cheating. Okay, you're on national television at this point. You are repeating a conversation in front of the cameras. The mature thing to do is to say, I'm taking a look at the mirror and it is not pretty. I have done some wrong to you. Let's at least agree to not put our dirty laundry out on display. It's like they weren't able to even get to the same conclusion about the way that they saw the relationship and the ending itself. Johnny was so hooked on the fact of like, you were talking to someone else when we were working on things, but Victoria also has a point, and it is a strong point. It's a point that she's really like fighting tooth and nail over, which is because the relationship was so bad. I can be out of this and I can do whatever I need to be out of this, and that means I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you grace. I don't owe you any goodness or any goodwill because of how you treated me. It's like they were midway in between a positive resolution if that's what they decided to do, but I think Victoria just called it quits really fast and was like, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. You can have closure on your own and figure it out. I'm with this new guy. We got tattoos. We're super in love with each other. It's Greg Grippo, who was one of the most thirsted after guys on Bachelor show. I don't get it with him personally, but I know that there's a lot of Grippo girls out there.
Don't even get me started on what I think about Greg Grippo.
He is just the most generic white guy to me. Like, there is nothing attractive or intriguing about him as a contender. But, yeah, like, just watching that entire breakup happen, to me, I just thought good riddance. They need to not be around each other because they are obviously extremely toxic, extremely unhappy, and unhealthy together. At least admit that and stop villainizing the other person and throwing each other under the bus and getting into the granular details. With this breakup, when it's that bad, you literally cannot. You have to just immediately be accountable on your own and not think that you're going to resolve anything together, because obviously you can't. Like, whenever you guys are together, you guys will fight the way that you guys fight, and no one deserves that on either side.
You look at, I look at Aaron and Genevieve again. This is before I knew about what Aaron did, but you just look at the way that they handled the conversation on the show as a comparison. It was like Genevieve had the opportunity to just really go in and show Aaron why he was a real little dickhead to her, but she didn't. She was like, listen, when Jesse gave her the floor, she was like, listen, I just want to take accountability for my part in it. I know that I did XYZ. This was like, I want to be better. I'm working on being better. And like, that's all I want to say. Wow. I was so impressed by that. She had every right, frankly, to like really go in and like really air out the laundry. But she didn't. She was like, let me tell you. And then he was like, right. And he was like, you know what? It's so funny. I was going to stop you while you were talking because I feel the same way. Like, I know I was really awful to you. I know that I was watching that back, and there were so many moments where it was out of hand and I just was going too far, and I want to take accountability for that too. I want to be better. Both of them, they just didn't even bother going in. They both were like, listen, we know we fucked up. And I appreciate that. And that's what I think, if more people could get to that place, I think it's so much healthier. And in part because, you know, and you could see it on Genevieve's face when he said that. It was like that was all she had wanted to hear. All she had wanted to hear was like, I'm not crazy. What happened was hurtful. I want you to validate that what I'm seeing, what I'm perceiving, what I'm feeling is real. And he did, just in that moment, by just saying, you're right. It was not okay the way I treated you. And she immediately hugs him the way, like, she like melted upon hearing that. And that's what people they just want to know that, hey, did you see my hurt? Did you see the pain that you caused me? Did you see it? Are you gonna try to not do that again? That's all people really want to know. And you know, I appreciated that Genevieve and Aaron did that, but Johnny and Victoria really couldn't get there at all. Victoria was just digging her heels into why it was justified for her to do what she did. And it's like, you're not going to get anywhere with that. Just admit the things that you did wrong. Admit the things that were not okay for you to do. And Johnny needed to do this too. He didn't do it either. But I do think that in this case, it really felt like Victoria, more than Johnny, was really trying to defend her own image. And it's like, you need to get over the image thing, guys. I mean, you are on national TV. That does make things a little different in terms of how the conversation is going to go, because you have to care about the fact that everyone's going to watch this, and how they interpret it is like how you're going to get treated for the rest of your life. But like, you know, there was something, I think that conversation could have gone really differently. And if she had just admitted what she did, I think people would have a lot more compassion and grace for her versus what she's doing right now.
And listen, with this kind of breakup, when it's gotten this bad, there is no winner. No one is right. You guys have both done bad, and just be accountable and fess up to that, and then agree to walk away from each other. There is no resolution. There is no healing to be done left in the relationship. It is too triggering. You guys are too much of mirrors for each other. Move on and kind of leave each other with as much grace as you can muster and walk away. That's the only way that relationship could have played out, where there was any kind of meaning that could be extracted from that, because it was so bad. And it's like, I don't think Johnny did an amazing job of owning up to the way that he treated Victoria. And because I guess he wasn't willing to do that, she wasn't willing to be like, I'm going to give you the truth of what happened because of how badly you treated me.
Yeah.
That is not, I don't think there was a great way to have handled it. It was definitely not on the national stage. I don't think Greg and Victoria have an amazing relationship either. I think that they both are kind of thirsty for the cameras, or they're thirsty for a little bit of the excitement of being such a I guess,
controversial couple.
Exactly. Very controversial. They're both feeding off of that, and that says a lot about where they are at as people right now, currently. But yeah, I just think she emotionally cheated. Johnny is not ready to be in a committed relationship with anybody. They should both just look at this relationship as we were not our best selves in this. We have to do better.
This actually ties us back to, I think, the larger theme here, which is, what is the purpose of escalating relationships as quickly as this show does? Because, to your point, it seems like Johnny isn't really ready for that level of commitment, but he knew that. He's been very honest with Gabby and Victoria that he didn't want to be in this level of commitment with someone, and that it was a really scary and big thing for him to do. He knew that. He said that, and everyone made fun of him for having commitment issues. And it's like, now we understand, like, he's had these really big insecurities that he's trying to cope with and learn about and understand. And he's been open with the women that he's been dating. Even Gabby, she knew that long before Fantasy Suites that Johnny wasn't sure if he wanted to get engaged. So he has not been lying to anyone about his stance on this. He said this right before he proposed to Victoria. He was like, who would have thought that I would have been here proposing? Like, I have been preaching to everyone on the beach against getting engaged. So he has been, I think he maybe is kind of like you and me, Julie, insofar as, like, I think he thinks it's ridiculous to get engaged so quickly. Rightfully so. It is ridiculous to get.
He is right.
He is correct. And it's like, he really dug his heels in that he was not ready to do this, but he did it for Victoria, because Victoria was like, we get engaged or bust. And to me, the big thing that I walk away from this, they both messed up in their relationship, but it does make me wonder, why did Victoria escalate things with him as quickly as she did? To me, it seems like they got out of paradise and things were like, she was unhappy. That's what she said. She was unhappy in the relationship. Her feelings about him changed, which it's always okay for your feelings to change. However, it's like, you were so early in the relationship that it's almost inevitable that there's going to be some adjustment period after you get out of the honeymoon stage. So why not wait until after you go through that adjustment period to decide whether or not you want to make that ultimate commitment of an engagement? You know, why not wait until after that? And Johnny wanted to do that. It was Victoria who pushed. And I personally think Victoria is smart enough to know better. I think she's smart enough to know herself, to know that she is someone who could be, lured away by Greg Grippo and her DMs. Like, I think that she is smart enough to know that, she can be not fickle, but that she can be, her mind can change as fast as it did, because it did change fast. Over the course of the month after the show ended, it seems like she changed how she felt about Johnny, whereas Johnny didn't. The relationship got really bad, but even at the reunion, he said, honestly, I wish it didn't. I wish she was still here with me, like sitting next to me as my fiance. So you could see his heart was still there, but hers clearly wasn't. And so it just makes me wonder, like, that your feelings are, they take time to develop. They don't get strong enough. They can change really quickly. Like, if you know that about yourself, why are you rushing into an engagement? Like, why are you doing that? Because you just hurt a guy who really didn't want to do this and you pushed him to do it. And I bet this is going to be really scarring for him. And that is on Victoria, because it was her who made this all happen. And if they had walked away not engaged, I think it would have hurt a lot less for the relationship to end the way that it did. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, I just don't know about this whole process of, like, trying to escalate intimacy as fast as they try to do it. I just don't know that it's like the number of couples who break up after this engagement, it's just so high that you have to, the process just kind of, it doesn't really work. You just need more time.
Well, this spins us off into the couples that were able to make it to the very end, namely Brandon and Serene, because that is, like, how you spoke about Victoria wanting the engagement at all cost. I would say that it's not like Serene and Brandon were thinking engagement or bust, but they were thinking, we're so in love that we are the only couple that can make it to the end of this and have all of these things together. Brandon just kind of cracked me up this entire finale because he was just like, Serena's so beautiful. She's the best woman I've ever seen. I want to be with her forever. I can't imagine my life without her. All of these things. And Serena was, swept away by Brandon looking at her with tears in his eyes and being like, I've never been with someone as amazing and beautiful as you. To me, it felt like that relationship, Danielle and Michael, Romeo and Kira, Jill and Jacob, all of these people, they just kind of went for the big romantic gesture at the end of, I need to be with someone to prove that I am successful or that I am desired or that I can have these things that I really want. Okay, this means this person is going to give it to me. Do I believe any of them will be a success? No. Brandon and Serena, I think they will break up. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I don't see them lasting at all because of the way that Brandon talks about Serena. The way that he talks about her is not the way that you talk about someone that you are fully and truly in love with. He said this during the episode. That was a really big red flag. We have been through every perceivable or imaginable situation, and I know that we can get through anything. No, you don't. You have no idea. You have only seen her during the heights of your honeymoon phase, and even though it's been several months since your engagement on TV, they are both, I believe, still really wrapped up in the seduction and the bubble of the show. And I believe that as they grow into themselves as people, they're not going to have a bad breakup. They will probably have a very pleasant mutual breakup where they say something on Instagram after like a year or 2 years of dating. I really do see that. I just don't see them lasting.
I just think that if Brandon and Serena break up, I don't think it would be Brandon who does it. I think it would be Serena would realize that she, either isn't happy, doesn't like some aspect or dynamic in the relationship, or she eventually gets the ick or something and just doesn't like his personality. Those are the reasons that I could see that relationship ending, as opposed to them. I just think that Brandon, he's saying that he wants to love her forever, and it kind of buy it. I think he does want that, and I don't think that his mind will change just because they have any kind of terrible fight. I feel like he would work on it with her, and it's just a question of whether or not she will want to work on it. And it depends, I guess, on the type of arguments and conflicts that they have. So I'll be curious to see what happens with those two, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up being one of the few long-term couples in Bachelor Nation. There's very few of them, but they just they're also both such chill people. They're not very high drama people as individuals. And so that is also something that just can naturally lend itself to a long-term relationship, because obviously people like Genevieve and Aaron, they're so high drama. Jill, so high drama. But Brandon and Serena are both, they're just so even and, whatever. They're just so chill. So I can kind of see it lasting, if not just because they're just not the kind of people that are gonna have conflicts arise that will be big enough to make them want to leave. I think that, so I can kind of see it with those two. I'm curious I don't know what you think about that or what everyone else thinks, but
I felt like this season of Bachelor in Paradise, man, it was really just, if I had to rate it, it's a D for me. Just the entire season was bad. How would you rate it? Because I was
I loved this season. I thought it was great. I would give it a solid A. It was good television to me.
You'd give it an A?
I liked it.
I'd give it a D.
I mean, me and Bert, we watched the whole thing together. We had a good time analyzing it. There was so much to kind of suss out. It was less about I don't know, everyone bullying people off the beach, which can sometimes be a theme on BIP. It was just a lot more about actually couples, do they work or do they not work? There was a lot more actual relationship dynamics to think about that were interesting to see unfold. So I think that's why I liked it. I also, I love the drama, and I love a lot of the characters, but a lot of the people who were on the beach, I liked them as people, specifically a lot of the women, Victoria, unfortunately, I stan. Brittany, Genevieve, even, there's a lot of people on the beach who I really like as people. Lots of the guys I wasn't that into, even though in this case I think a lot of the men like they dealt with a lot of bullshit from the women this
They
time
did,
around.
but I also thought that it was just the fact that even though the show, I mean, some of it was fun to watch, I felt like so many of the themes and the narratives was so tired. The classism, the toxic dating, a lot of, it just didn't feel like as fun this season, where they were just really having a good time and just, I don't know, it felt a little bit more bro-y. Like, all of the guys really loved hanging out with each other. I don't know if they were as into the woman, and the woman was so bad that I was defending some of these men, which I absolutely hated doing. So, to me, I was kind of judging the show from that way of like, okay, am I at least having fun seeing the drama develop on the beach? And it wasn't as fun to watch some elements of it because there were, like, I don't love that Shanae came out of it looking... and smelling like roses. She kind of ended the season on a high, even after the whole twin breakup. She's probably now like a favorite of the Bachelor franchise, and her to be a darling, just to me, signals everything wrong about the show. I love that you gave it an A. About that. You and Bert, wow, that's high praise.
Well, I agree with you. The Shanae, Logan, Kate, that part of it, I was like, ugh. I couldn't with that. I just didn't care. But a lot of the other stuff I was interested in. Like, the Rodney Eliza stuff was, like, excruciating but interesting. It was interesting to kind of watch that dynamic and have conversations about what was going on with that triangle. So I enjoyed it insofar as, and I feel like aside from, again, Shanae, Logan, Kate, who are just, like, directly bad actors, like, bad... Like, they just had so many bad ideas and, like, kind of their morals are much more in question. I feel like the other people on the beach made a lot of mistakes, but I didn't have this feeling of, like, everyone on the beach is, like, a shitty person. Like, I think they were all shitty daters, but I don't think they were shitty people, which I think I sometimes struggle with on Bachelor in Paradise. I feel like there's just so many people who I'm like, oh, my God, you are, like, kind of heinous as a human, and, like, you're kind of, like... I don't know, the way you treat people is so awful. But I didn't really feel that way about all the contestants this summer. I feel like a lot of the people, they made a lot of mistakes. I had a lot of criticism for a lot of people. But I do think that a lot of these people have good hearts, maybe excluding Victoria. I do think, like, Johnny, Andrew, Justin, people who I was really critical of. Rodney, Eliza, so critical of. I still think that they all were trying their best, and I think they're going to continue trying their best. Genevieve, Aaron, like, I really think that they want to be better. They suck at dating, but they're trying. And so in that sense, I appreciated and was able to root for them in a way that I can sometimes struggle with Bachelor in Paradise when everyone is just really awful and mean. That was why I think I enjoyed the season. But what do you all think? You all watching, did you enjoy this season? What was the highs and lows for you? How would you rate the season? A through F. What grade would you give this season? Let us know down below. In the coming weeks, we're going to be experimenting with new kinds of videos. We're going to be doing analysis of movies, TV shows, other types of media that have to do with relationships and dating themes. We're really excited about it. If there's a movie that you've seen recently or a show that you think we should be analyzing, leave it down below in a comment and we'll look into it. But between now and when The Bachelor starts back up at the end of January with Zach, we'll be looking into some other types of content, and we'll still be putting out videos every single week. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss this new kind of era of Queer to Find Love, and we will see you all next week. Bye!